raids, court battles, and political chaos. In the last 30 days, U.S. immigration has been a whirlwind. But could the real story be found in a simple jar of salsa? We're breaking down the 4 biggest events you need to know. In a nation defined by its immigrant roots, the conversation around border policies and belonging has reached a fever pitch. Today, we go beyond the headlines to explore the real-world impact of these decisions on a historic scale. Let's begin with the number that stunned the nation. On September 23, 2025, the Department of Homeland Security announced a staggering milestone. 2 million undocumented immigrants removed or self-deported in just 250 days. That figure breaks down into 400,000 formal removals and 1.6 million who self-deported under the threat of arrest. The administration hailed it as a policy victory. Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin declared, "The numbers don't lie. President Trump's policies and Secretary Noem's leadership are working and making American communities safe. Self-deport, or we will arrest and deport you." Supporters echoed this sentiment. Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas stated, 2 million gone, Trump's delivering, ending Biden's invasion, freeing jobs, slashing crime. This restores rule of law, boosts wages 2% in key sectors. On Fox News, host Laura Ingraham celebrated, 2 million out, Trump's promise kept, Dems disaster dismantled, illegals self-deporting, genius deterrence. But critics point to a starkly different reality. Families torn apart, children left behind, and an economy scrambling to fill the void. A Wharton school model simulation projected the mass departures could cost the U.S. economy $900 billion over the next decade, with a potential GDP dip of 1.5%. Dallas Fed economist Pia Arrhenius cautioned this scale of removal could erode GDP by 0.2% amid growing labor shortages in farming and auto industries, warning of inflation spikes. Pundit Ezra Klein put it bluntly, stating the milestone masks misery, families torn, economies strained. So what do these policies mean for the individuals caught in the system? We turn to immigration lawyer Chris M. Ingram for his perspective. While enforcement has legal grounding, the human cost of ripping apart families who've built lives here demands a more compassionate approach, prioritizing immigration reforms that value contributions over blanket removals. Pro-immigration pathways are essential to sustain economic growth, as these individuals often fill vital roles and add billions in taxes annually. Even when courts grant relief, the ongoing threat of detention undermines our shared humanity, calling for policies that protect vulnerable communities regardless of politics. Ultimately, humane treatment fosters a stronger, more unified America for all. And just as removals reach historic highs, the Supreme Court has made immigration stops even easier and far more controversial. Next, we turn to a quiet Supreme Court decision with loud consequences. A 6-3 ruling has redrawn the lines of immigration enforcement, but critics ask, has it also legalized racial profiling? We're looking at the controversial order that could change the nature of policing nationwide. September 8, 2025. In Noem versus Vasquez Perdomo, the Supreme Court lifted restrictions on immigration sweeps in Los Angeles. The 6-3 decision allows ICE agents to stop people based on a totality of reasonable suspicion. What counts as suspicious? Factors can now include location, speaking with an accent, or appearing to be a day laborer. The move comes amid Operation at Large, a federal push against criminal activity. Supporters like Justice Brett Kavanaugh argue the judiciary shouldn't set enforcement policy, but critics are sounding the alarm. In a powerful dissent, Justice Sotomayor warned, "We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job. Dissent. The rushed ruling, issued from the court's shadow docket, has economists predicting a harsh fallout, potentially costing Los Angeles 1.2% of its $1 trillion GDP due to a drop in the Latino workforce. What are the real-world consequences when a legal precedent like this is set? To understand the human impact, we turn to immigration lawyer Chris M. Ingram. While the ruling affirms constitutional bounds, it risks enabling inhumane profiling that tears at the fabric of diverse communities. Even with judicial relief, the fear of detention disrupts lives, calling for humane reforms that transcend politics to treat all with compassion. Ultimately, balanced immigration fosters unity and growth, not division through fear. The implications are already being felt. Asylum claims in LA are up 15%. From the streets of Los Angeles, a new wave of fear is spreading nationwide. From the courtroom to the factory floor, our next story shows what happens when immigration policy collides with global economics. At a multi-billion-dollar Hyundai plant in Georgia, critical to America's clean energy future, a federal raid has sparked an international incident and put a vital supply chain at risk. On September 4, 2025, federal agents stormed Hyundai's $7.6 billion EV battery plant in Bryan County, Georgia. Dubbed Operation Clean Sweep, the raid led to the detention of 475 workers. Most were skilled South Korean specialists on temporary B1/B2 visas, here to transfer advanced EV technology. ICE claimed many had overstayed or were working improperly. The fallout was immediate and international. 300 workers were deported within days. South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yul lodged a formal protest, calling the raid deeply regrettable. And it was revealed at least one detained worker actually had a valid visa. While DHS Secretary Kristi Noem defended the raid as upholding the rule of law, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp warned it jeopardized a $12 billion state investment. Economists predict the raid could cost Georgia $300 million a month and put $5 billion in future foreign investment at risk. Critics argue this wasn't just enforcement. It was political theater that jeopardizes the U.S. EV supply chain and shakes global investor confidence. The fallout is complex, affecting diplomacy, industry, and investor trust. For a bottom-line analysis of what this raid cost America, we turn to the perspective of immigration lawyer Chris M. Ingram. The Hyundai raid signals a chilling overreach, undermining U.S. investment credibility. When enforcement disregards due process and economic stability, it deters the very talent and capital that fuels our competitive edge. This isn't just about visas. It's about whether America remains a reliable partner for global innovation. Protecting our borders should not mean sabotaging our economy. And yet, amid removals and raids, one story reminds us what's possible when immigrants get the chance to thrive. From a kitchen in Utah, we look at how one immigrant's determination and a family recipe grew into a symbol of the American dream. In Magna, Utah, Mahara Zapata, better known as the Salsa Queen, turned a life of hardship into an American success story. She arrived from Monterrey, Mexico in 1989 at age 17, overstaying a visitor visa and living undocumented for decades. Growing up in what she called a mentally, emotionally, and physically abusive culture in Mexico, she believed she was worth nothing. Her turning point came when her future husband and business partner, Jim Birch, asked a question no one had ever posed to her. "What would you like to do?" She replied, "I want to make salsas." They started with Facebook sales and parking lot handoffs before debuting at the Wheeler Farm Farmers Market. They brought 100 jars and sold out in 2 hours. Zapata recalls that day. "I remember having those $500 in my hand. I had never had that much money. It was such a proud, humble moment. By 2024, her salsas were stocking shelves at Harmon's, Smith's, and Costco across the state. Her marriage in 2016 allowed her to adjust her legal status, and in 2019, she became a U.S. citizen, legally changing her name to Salsa Queen Zapata. Mahara's journey is inspiring, but what larger lesson does it offer about immigration's role in the nation's success? To put her story into a broader context, we turn to lawyer Chris M. Ingram. Salsa Queen's naturalization, after overstaying a visa, exemplifies the humane pathways we must protect. Her story underscores immigration's vital role in fueling our economy and reminds us that pro-immigration policies, grounded in empathy, ensure that journeys like hers continue to forge America's success. This week, 4 stories told one truth. Immigration is not a side issue. It's the battleground where America decides between fear and resilience, exclusion and opportunity. 2 million lives uprooted, civil rights tested, factories raided, and one immigrant's salsa empire rising through it all. Together, they reveal a nation at a crossroads. How America chooses will define its future. Immigrants aren't just part of America's story, they are America's story. Balanced, humane policies don't just protect families, they make the nation stronger. Don't wait for the next policy change to upend your plans. Get clarity now. Visit breakthroughusa.com for your free consultation. And if you want clarity, not noise, on U.S. immigration, hit subscribe and share this video. We'll be here every week, cutting through the chaos